of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Josh, and Josh and I are going to be talking about why Google is evil and why big tech is evil too. Now, I can't wait to dig into this because I've seen your TED Talk. You've done a TEDx. So if there's anybody out there and you want to get more information, certainly see Josh's TED Talk. But Josh, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at Josh Bachynski. I hope the spelling is on the screen there. If it's not, it's Josh, B as in Bob, ACH, Y as in YouTube, N as in Nancy, SKI as in the activity. That's where you can find at Josh Bachynski on Twitter, or you can email me, same name, same spelling, at gmail.com. I'm kind of old school. People can email me directly. That's fine by me. I don't care.
So, Google is evil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to start?
Sure. So my TEDx talk was called "The Future of Google Search and Ethics," and so let me preface it. Google is a little bit evil. I'd say low key evil. I mean, let's put this in the right context. I'm not saying Google is going around eating babies or anything. I'm not saying that.
And the people there are lovely, I'm sure.
And most of them are. I've talked with many of them: Miley Oye, Danny Sullivan, John Mueller, Gary Ilyish, Paul Haar, Matt Cutts. I've had conversations with a lot of over the years Googlers, and they're well-meaning people who are, or a lot of them trying to do the right thing. Especially Matt Cutts. I didn't give him enough credit. I had a kind of a article about him on my blog a few years back that was quite the stir in the SEO industry. Saying, calling out some of the things he was doing. And then he left and things got worse. So, it's like, it's gray areas. It's good and bad. It's good. It's good with the bad. Let me tell you why I think Google is, however, low-key evil. One, they used to have a "Don't be evil" motto. And when Sergey Brin and Larry Page set up the company, their idea was to be good and make money simultaneously. So hurt nobody, be an actually good company doing actually good things for the people, making welfare and no ill fare in any way, and make money. And the idea was that you could do this, that was possible, that being good and making money were in no way at odds. In fact, if you did it right, it helped your brand position, and it did help their brand position tremendously. And you can actually be good and actually make money, and it's a win-win-win, and everyone wins, and we all move forward. But of course, the long story short, the greed of capitalism seeps in. Right. That's what happens. They want to make more money, and to make more money, they cut corners, and they don't care who they are. So they start buying up businesses. They start, we can have a better hotel listings. We can have a better local listings. We can have a better air traffic listings. They start sucking up businesses and taking away people's lunch. And the more and more they start to drill.
They bought up all the search competitors, because I've got a friend who retired early. She went to a search startup. And they bought her out, and she doesn't. Yes. She immediately retired.
Yes, and so they built their monopoly. Right? They very clearly have a search monopoly. It's very clear that they do. The EU thinks so and keeps suing them over it, which, as we can see, has absolutely no effect on their operations whatsoever. But here's what I said in my TEDx talk. It's a little bit more esoteric, but it's very important. So let me explain why. It's that because of this monopoly that they have on search, they have become the de facto gateway to the internet. You don't open up Lycos and click a link anymore to get to the internet. You go to Google and you do a search in the vast majority of times for the vast majority of internet users. Or maybe you get to it through a social media app. Those are other monopolies that have the equal problem. That I'm going to say is that it is highly foolish. And my background is philosophy. I've in politics and psychology. I've studied the history of human thought for the last 5,000 years. And it is highly, highly foolish to have a private for-profit company, especially a left-leaning Silicon Valley company, even though I'm left-leaning too. That doesn't matter. It's highly foolish to have this private autocracy controlling our information flow. It is a highly foolish thing to do. It is a search utility for the internet. It's the Control F or Command F for the internet. And to have a private company doing it is dangerous, even if they're a benevolent autocracy. Even if they're a benevolent.
In effect, I mean, you're right, Josh. When you think about it, they are the gatekeeper to the internet. If I want to find anything, I go to Google because there is Bing, but it's not used by a lot of people.
And the same argument applies there too.
Yeah. But if I'm not on Google, I don't exist.
Exactly. Precisely. So, I mean, they censor a lot of stuff. They are not a search engine. They are a censorship engine, right? The stats have shown from Ahrefs, 90% of the internet gets no traffic from Google. 90% of the internet. Other stats that Google put out recently is that stats far higher, like 99.9% of the internet gets no traffic from Google. They have no exposure in Google. Google censors the vast majority of the internet. Now, so a search engine is necessarily a censorship engine if they put the stuff you want to see, or they want you to see at the top, and they censor everything else at the bottom. No one goes to it, right? So they're not a search engine; they're a censorship engine. First off, and that might not even be a bad thing. We might agree with every single thing they censor. We might agree with all the businesses they decide to disenfranchise. We might agree with their self-appointed role as a Better Business Bureau of deciding what businesses are high quality or not, which they've been sued over for that determination. But of course, you can't sue Google because their legal team is the best one in the world. They have the most money. They're beyond the system. They're above the system. You can't take them to court. So even if we agree with every single thing they censor, that's not the point. We did not vote for them. There is no governmental control of this government level utility, right? There are governmental controls for every other utility: heat, water, power. There are no governmental controls for this one, and it is essential to daily life. You cannot get by in daily life without a search engine for the internet. They are the de facto search engine for the internet. The internet is public, therefore the search engine should be public. The search engine for it needs to be a not-for-profit organization. What I recommended in my TEDx talk is that NATO or the United States needs to buy Google immediately from Alphabet, just the search component, buy it, and then turn around and hire them to run it, because clearly no one can run it more efficiently than them. And then the only difference is that now we have a Charter of Rights that we vote on, or a Bill of Rights for you Americans, if you prefer. You're not American, though. I'm not sure. Whoever, whatever. A charter or a Bill of Rights outlining what the searchers get and what the searchees get. What businesses need to do to be upstanding, because we, the people, have decided it, not Google for their own reasons, have decided what a good business is, using their search intuitions, to quote Matt Cutts and Paul Haar and other Google search engineers. Their search engine intuitions are not representative of the democratic body. Okay. And they say, well, this is what we do. We watch where everyone clicks, and that's a vote. No, it's not. No, it's not. User patterns is not a vote. A vote has to be declared, and we have to know what we're voting on and go there and do it on a specific date. It is a very significant and specific democratic process to vote, that we have to know what we're doing. We have to be informed, first off, and that's another huge problem in our current society, that the media doesn't properly inform us really for any votes in any liberal democracy. And then we have to actually go and vote and do it. And we have to vote on the Charter of Rights we want maintained, and then they're the executive who will execute that charter. And then every 4 years or something like that, we have a referendum to see, do we want to change the charter? Do you want to change the searchee and the searcher rights? No, okay. And then if nothing changed at all, and in Google still censored the kind of businesses that we supposedly don't want because they're too mom and pop and they don't have the right web technology, like, that's clearly unfair. But let's say that's how we decided it in our Charter of Rights, then fine, at least we decided it. You know who gets to bully people in a democracy? The democracy. That's it. And the represented electives that they represented. That's how it works. That's how it needs to work. It's the best system we've ever made. Yes, it has flaws, but it is the most fair system we've ever made. And Google has circumvented it because capitalism has allowed them to.
So you're an SEO expert.
I profess to be, yes.
Yes. So it's interesting that we have this balance between here you are, you're working with you're working in the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you balance that? Because you've clearly got very strong views about this, but maybe that's because you're an SEO expert, because you know about these things and you know about the where the corners are and the shortcuts or alleyways.
Exactly. So you've hit the nail on the head. Who better to know that the Death Star is terrible than the guy who pulls that lever with the weird helmet and the laser goes by behind it? Who better to know that I shouldn't be doing this? This is terrible. This whole system is rigged. I shouldn't be pulling this lever right now. So thank you for asking that question. That very few people actually see the mild irony there.
It's maybe because I'm British and I love irony, and but there is a fantastic irony here. Yes.
There indeed is. And so this is how I rectify the irony for myself personally, is that, and this is how I know, is that I get weekly emails. I get emails every single week, and they're all the same. They start like this: Josh, my business, this, I did that, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to lose my business. Help me, help me. And I'm just trying to help them stay afloat. And so maybe it's because I'm triaging. Maybe it's because I'm in the ER and I'm not in the administrator office. I see what's happening on the front lines. And I'm like, listen, yes, capitalism is competitive based, and that's integral to the system. There's no way to avoid that. So I'm going to take my pet theories of capitalism and I'll just push them to the side for the moment. If I have to remain in a capitalist system, then yes, there has to be some competition. But it shouldn't be Google that chooses the rules. It's like people think, well, it's just competition. Google is a wolf and they're just eating the caribou. That's the way it works. I'm like, no, 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 no. This system is if the wolves could control the environment and they could just automatically funnel the caribou into a ravine where they cannot escape, and they can glut themselves on more caribou than are required. That's what's actually going on here. That's clearly unfair. That's not just competition or nature settling itself. So I view myself as a Robin Hood kind of character. I try to help people. I'm trying to help the small guy, and I'm helping mostly small guys, because it's the small guys who can't afford the Google ads. Like it's also an extortion racket, right? Google's like, sure, you can be at the first page of Google. You can be at the top of Google. You just have to pay our exorbitant, clicks, $20 a click, $25 a click. Your cost of acquisition per customer goes up exponentially every year because that's the way they made their system to work. Where literally it's strangling smaller businesses that can't afford that cost per acquisition. So it's not a fair system. It's not a just system. It's not an ethical system. It's not a democratic system. It is an autocracy, right? It is the worst kind of autocracy where the king chooses everything. It is Game of Thrones without the boobs and dragons, and they get to choose everything that happens, and you have no choice. That's not the way it should run.
So, changing tack a bit. What about AI?
Sadly, with AI, this situation gets worse because they put the generative search at the top, and now all the people when Tim Berners-Lee created the vision of the web, this created something called the information age, where human beings were writing down their opinion and their information on the web. I would go out and I would buy a camera. I would buy some pecan tarts, right? And I do a review of the pecan tarts. They're great, by the way. That's sold at my local store here up at the lake. I would do a review of the pecan tarts. I'd say, these are the best pecan tarts ever. I make it on my blog. And I'm informing the world for free, right? That was the Tim Berners-Lee part of the vision, or where it kind of ended up, really. I don't know if Tim Berners-Lee, that's what he quite had in mind, but that's where it ended up, right? And Google was like, sure, if you make this traffic, if you make this pages, we will rank you in search if you're high quality enough, which I said is a racket that needs to be dealt with, but ignoring that for a second. And you'll show up at the top, and we'll give you traffic for you to monetize however you see fit. You can monetize it by selling affiliate products. You can monetize it by drop shipping. You can monetize it by just ads, by having web ads on the page, tons and tons of too many ads on the page where people click and you make your money. And that's the way it's been for the last 25 years. That's been the agreement. Well, now Google has reneged on that agreement. Now they said, thanks, we've stolen all your content without your permission, and we put all your content in our corpus for our AI to train on it so it knows how to talk. And now we don't need you anymore. Now it can answer questions on its own, and web traffic stands to drastically drop to these informational style pages. They've literally birthed the information age and killed the information age. No single private company should have the power to do this. It's very, very clear. They're ending an era. They're killing a whole age and millions of businesses by doing this, because they want to put it in generative search because it's better for the user. So
and so if they've indexed, or they're bringing all of that the internet into, so what you're saying is they're bringing the internet into their AI, which is Bard, isn't it?
Yes, it's PaLM 2. PaLM 2 is the actual language model underneath. Google Bard is the front-facing portion of kind of a test kitchen that will probably be part of generative search. So yes, they were going to call it Google Magi, and the people call it Google Bard but Bard is a different thing. They're calling it generative search at the top, so they're not really sure what name they want to call it at the moment. But sure, yeah.
And so what you're saying is that they what they're able to do is use their um, language to basically go out and use that as the thing that they're training their AI on. So if you
Mhm,
think about ChatGPT,
mhm.
which probably most people are aware of, we go to ChatGPT and we put in, tell me what you think about Google, and it comes back with an answer.
It sure does. And that answer is the crystallized statistical semantic that is representative of the majority opinion in the corpus it was fed. OpenAI does the exact same thing. They use an open web bot to input, among other data sources, billions and billions and billions of web pages, and puts that into their corpus. And they train it on their AI to answer questions that will therefore usurp that process and suck up all that traffic, without your permission and without giving you any cut either. Midjourney does the same thing, and Stable Diffusion does the same thing for images, which people are starting to notice. And actually, big a Brit as well. Last week tonight with John Oliver, they did a big story on it, and literally in Midjourney, you can still see some of the copyright. The image owned by so and so garbled because it's not trained on how to do text; it's trained on how to do images. In the images, clearly, it's supposedly supposed to be paid for images got in the mix. And there's talk at the higher levels of giving owners a percentage, because they can tell. They could be like, this is exactly 16% McFarlane style, 20% Bachynski style, 40% this style, taken from 50% this stock photo site. They can tell mathematically where it came from, right? So then they can just break it up and start giving you cuts of percentage of cents or dollars on some kind of fee. I'd love it if they do that. And if they did that, then there'd be a terrible, incredible precedent set to do it with text as well. And
Yes.
Google and OpenAI would have to pay. However, I'll tell you right now, that's not going to happen. It won't happen because why? Because money rules and big tech rules. Information is the most expensive commodity on the planet. It surpassed oil, what, like 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
And so it's like asking the oil companies to do something, as if they'll shut off the tap of information and they'll make an embargo if they want. They can be equally as draconic as that.
Well,
So
we've had a number of social media sites that have said, if they're going to have to pay news agencies to present news, then they're going to stop transmitting in those particular countries.
yes, indeed. We have a Reddit blackout right now where there's a similar issue going on. People can protest, and they should, quite frankly, because that's the only control that we have. Because I think it's too little, too late. I think we've already passed the tripping point. I think big tech has already gotten away with this, and they've killed the information age, and now we're moving into the age of AI. Ultimately, the age of AI is more bright than negative, in my opinion. As much as AI disables across the board, it will enable even more. Every job it takes, it will create two more, in my opinion, when you really look at the data, when you really look at it.
Yeah.
But in this particular corner of big tech, of just what we're talking about for OpenAI's and Google and Bing and Microsoft stealing everyone's text from the open web and then answering those questions so nobody ever has to go to a web page anymore, or statistically, they just stifle the amount of traffic that goes to web pages. And on the text side and on the image side, Midjourney and the text to video people and Stable Diffusion. And then on the music side too, this will happen. Music has teeth because they've been vehemently protecting their copyright for a very long time. They might be able to, and Sony has in the past taken on Google before, legally and technically, in terms of things going on. So maybe they'll be able to throw in their weight. I give them a 48% chance of success. I think that big tech and capitalism, because they can make so much money, and LLMs are strangled if they start like it's like turning around and extorting Google now. Google has been extorting us with paid click at the top. So we had to pay a percentage of our fee to them. And now, if that happens, and they turn around and big tech has to pay a percentage to copyright owners, I would love nothing more, because now you can just make content all day long, and if you produce enough content, you make enough money to live, right? If I make 10,000 units of content and I'm getting paid, whatever it is, 10% on that, fine, I'm making $1,000 a month. Maybe I can live off that, or whatever it is. that would be lovely. But it would cost big tech too much, and I think that they're going to make politics their handmaid and not have it happen, and capitalism will go on its merry way to making more economic bubbles and more pollution until we're all living in Mad Max.
Josh, thank you so much for coming on. You got it right down to the 20 minutes, didn't you? You knew you were
Boom.
watching the clock. Boom.
Boom. I deliver.
Absolutely.
Put me on a podcast. I'll say what you need in the time you need it.
That's Josh. I wanted you to come on because we did a prep call, and I've got loads of notes, and I wanted you to come on because I think it's important as part of this podcast that we hear different opinions. Sure. And I'm a great believer is that this is not about whether I agree with you or I disagree with you. It's for people that are listening and watching this to make their decision themselves. And while you have something while you talk about something which is, would be deemed as a little bit out there, I think it's important to air that, because I think it's important that we're sharing things and we can come up with our own view on it. And thank you so much for coming on and talking about it.
It's my pleasure, Tim, anytime.
Remind people where they can get hold of you.
Sure. If anybody wants to talk more, please email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. That's JOSH, B as in Bob, ACH, Y as in YouTube, N as in Nancy, SKI@gmail.com. Or the same spelling, follow me on Twitter. And you'll hear a lot more from me. Just make sure when you watch the generative AI, if you like different views, that'll shrink in the future because the generative AI will boil down to mass opinion.
Josh, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your expertise and also sharing your view of the future, because I think that's important as well. Because I think there's so many of us that are interested but unsure about what's happening to AI, and listening to you, for me, has been really interesting. Thank you so much.
It's a crazy time, Tim. It's a crazy time.
It is a crazy time. Thank you.